Hello, this is Stephen Nojiri, and this is another Tada Genji tradition video. In this video, we're going to discuss a culturally and religiously important thing for the Tada Genji Jingunden, something known as the 10 Treasures of Nigihayahi. Now, if you have the book Samurai Traditions of the Tada Genji, you can turn to page 171, and this is where this section begins. So, the 10 Treasures of Nigihayahi. You see the kanji on your screen, and you'll see 4 different kanji, and then I put their individual meaning: 10, variety, and then that third one means divinity or kami, or it can also, as we know, mean imperial, and then the last one is treasure. So the 10 kinds of divine treasure, or the specifically it means the 10 treasures of Nigihayahi. Now, these are the 10 treasures that Nigihayahi brought to Japan when he left the heavens but got stranded on Earth. There's a typo, it says stranded on Earth. Stranded on Earth. Now, this is culturally important, religiously important to the Tada Genji Jingunden and to other traditions as well. But specifically, this channel is about the Tada Genji Jingunden. But what I want to do is I want to go over the basic backstory. Now, if you've been watching the videos up to here, I've mentioned these before, so these shouldn't be completely new to you. And if you've read the book already, you'll know what I'm already talking about. But I would like to again go over the backstory, basic backstory, and then we'll go over an overview of the 10 treasures. But then I also want to end the video by addressing some of the controversial or conspiracy theory, modern day conspiracy theories that sort of have overshadowed the actual history. So let's begin. So honestly, I could take a long time to tell this story, but I'm going to give you the very short version. And hopefully you've seen some of the other videos and they can help fill this in a little bit. But the basics are that Nigihayahi is one of the heavenly gods, or the gods of the heavens. Now this is important. Remember, you have to distinguish God of the heaven as opposed to God of the earth or God of the country. These divisions are important because within the samurai culture, within you can say Shinto, samurai culture, Japanese culture, within the religious viewpoint, these are 2 different types of gods. But within the academic circle, like modern day academics, it is explained that these are actually 2 different major tribes of people, or 2 different major groups. So the gods of the heavens are actually mainland Asians that come over, and gods of the earth refer to indigenous Japanese tribes. Now again, that's a modern day academic interpretation looking back through history scientifically. But it's very important to distinguish between gods of the earth and gods of the heavens, be it from the religious viewpoint or the academic viewpoint. So having made that distinction, Nigihayahi is a god of the heavens. And according to several holy texts, such as the Nihon Shoki and the Kujiki, and remember, yes, the Kujiki was sort of done away with, was labeled Gisho in the late 1600s, but regardless of its fate in the 1600s, in the Nihon Shoki, in the Kujiki, the story of Nigihayahi is contained. We also find this within the Southern Court's Jino Shotoki, as well as Mononobe-ryu's Taiseikyo. So this story is told in many religious texts. So Nigihayahi is a god of the heaven who's flying around in his ship when he accidentally crashes and gets stranded on Earth. He has the 10 treasures with him in his ship when he crashes, so he has them. He's stranded, but he has his 10 treasures. And with this, he becomes a local god or local chief and establishes his own mini kingdom. So this is pre-Emperor Jimmu. This is pre-Jimmu Tenno. Because what will eventually happen is a deity named Umashimaji no Mikoto, who is of Nigihayahi's line. So he's descendant Slightly different versions. Some versions say grandson, some versions say son. He is a very close in generation descendant of Nigeyahi. So anyway, Umashi Shimaji no Mikoto uses the 10 treasures to actually resuscitate Jimmu Tenno. So Emperor, and I mentioned this in a previous video, so Emperor Jimmu is actually on the doorstep of death, and these 10 treasures revive him. And because he is revived, Umashimaji no Mikoto becomes an important figure, and at that point he becomes the founder of the House of Mononobe. And this is the beginning of the Mononobe tradition. So according to the same historical text and religious text, for example, like the Jino Shotoki explicitly says that the 10 treasures end up in the Iso no Kami shrine. So at least in the 1300s, this is where everyone has accepted that they are being stored at, is the Iso no Kami shrine. So and then the Iso no Kami shrine then has its version of the story, and essentially the Iso no Kami shrine maintains the version of the story that the samurai culture and religious traditions maintain, is that his Nigihayahi was flying a ship and he crashed onto Earth and he had these 10 treasures on him. So again, from the samurai culture or from the religious viewpoint, he is a heavenly god that gets stranded on Earth. Now the modern day academics interpret this as him being from mainland Asia, from China or Korea, and he wrecks in Japan. So, because remember, from the academic viewpoint, a god of heaven is someone from mainland Asia. God of the country or god of the earth, god of the land is a native or indigenous to Japan. But I want the viewer to be very clear that the religious tradition doesn't believe that he's Chinese or Korean. Okay, that the interpretation that he is a Chinese or Korean is a modern academic interpretation. And also to remember that the religious tradition does mention, is 100% aware, of course is 100% aware of Chinese immigrants and Korean immigrants, and even contains mentions of Chinese and Koreans, and even has the story, again, remember I was in a previous video, of Susanoo going to Korea for a period of time. But so the religious tradition is fully aware of China, Korea, and immigration, but it never views Nigihayahi as being some sort of a human being who came from mainland Asia. It maintains that he's a heavenly god, a heavenly deity who was stranded on Earth. Okay, so now that we have a basic understanding of the 10 treasures, so they are the 10 treasures that Nigihayahi had on him when he crashed his ship on Earth and was stranded, and then those treasures went down his descendancy to the time of Emperor Jimmu. They were used to resuscitate Emperor Jimmu because each one of these 10 treasures has its own special power, and then within the 10 there's 3 groups that you see on your screen. You can see them broken into 3 groups. So you have, each one of them has their own power, and then there's 3 subgroups with its own special power, and then when all 10 of them are brought together, it is said that they can resuscitate someone or bring someone back to life. The other reason, and I haven't put the exact translation of all the names on here because ultimately a lot of these treasures have multiple names, so that you, the viewer, understand most of this information is I'm streamlining most of this down so that it's a basic introduction for you. Also, you should know the majority of this information I'm pulling from the Iso no Kami Shrine's inventory document. That is a document that gives the different names of each treasure, because many of the treasures have multiple names. So it gives a description of the treasure, gives the names of the treasure, gives the history, gives religious teachings, names of rituals that are associated with it, etc., etc., etc. So to kind of streamline this, the first set of treasures is a large mirror and a small mirror and a sword. And that's one set. Each one of those has their own individual powers, but when you put those three together, then there is a special thing that those three do. Then you have 4 jewels: a jewel of life, a jewel of reversing death, or a jewel of sufficient amount, and a jewel of reversing course or returning to the path. Those 4 jewels, when together, have their own special power. Then you have the ritual shawl that prevents snakes, ritual shawl that prevents hornets, and a ritual shawl that prevents many things. When those 3 are together, they have their own power. And then, if you put all 10 together, you get the reversing of death, or the bringing someone back to life. So, these 10 treasures are also what you invoke when you do the counting to 10 spell that is found in Fukushima-ryu ninjutsu. And I mentioned that in the video. I did a video about the chant, the norito, the chant used to channel these 10 treasures. We talked about the power, the cleansing power of the numbers themselves, and the relationship to these treasures. But the viewer must be warned, though, that this norito is misused, and it's widely spread today among occult circles, and it's greatly misused in the modern day. And we'll talk about that a little bit after we go over the treasures themselves. But I just want the viewer to know that prior to them being sort of misused in the modern time, these are directly connected to Mononobe-ryu related traditions, which are Kujiki-based rituals and ideas, such as the Tada Genji, Jingunden, and Fukushima-ryu, etc., etc. All right, so we're going to focus now. Remember what I said, the following images are my own hand-drawn images based on a copy of the Issa no Kami's Shrine's inventory document. So I had a copy of the Issa no Kami Shrine's inventory document, and then I drew these images myself. So please don't copy them, because these images are mine. Okay, cool? All right, so the first, the large mirror is represented by one of these 2 images. Both of these images appear in the Issa no Kami document, so it's a variation. You can see essentially it's the same thing, but there's a slight variation of how it's presented. But this is a large, tall mirror that is, it specifically is supposed to be placed in a high position, a place where it has easy access to the sun-filled sky. The next mirror, this is the mirror that you keep close to you. So the large mirror goes somewhere where it has access to the open sunny sky, and the second mirror is the one that you're to keep close to you. And this is, there's a couple of different traditions related to this one, but we don't like about receiving wisdom, knowledge, be able to purify evil things, etc., etc. But again, this is an introductory video. We don't need to go into too much detail. The third treasure is the sword, and it's known as the sword with 8 grips. It is essentially, remember what I said about swords being amulets in a previous video. I said in the religious tradition, swords are amulets. They're not swords for cutting and stabbing, they're amulets. So this is an amulet that is essentially used to banish evil spirits. And then the Issa no Kami document describes that these 3 link together, come together in a certain way that is known as the merging of the sun, the moon, and the dipper. So these 3 are symbolically connected to the sun, the moon, and the Big Dipper. Again, we're keeping this really straightforward and basic, as this is just a basic introduction, so we won't go into too much detail. But as you see, treasure number 4, that is the Tama of life. And then it is essentially the heavens. It's yang energy. It's connected to spring. Then number 5, that's the Tama of death, and that is it's connected to the earth, and it is yin and it is autumn, right? So you see some like yin-yang parallels here. Number 6, that treasure is known as the Tama of sufficient amount, and basically it's a wish-fulfilling gem. Like possession of this Tama means you will always have at least a sufficient amount of resources. it is associated with yang and summer. And so it's paired with number 7, which is the tama of returning to the path, or revert, like it's kind of hard to translate that. It's like the path is reversing course, but it's reversing course back to the positive, though, or reversing course back to something positive. And so it chases away evil spirits and can prevent spirit possessions, things like that. And it is associated, it is yin and it is winter. So, and it pairs with number 6. So you can see there's a pattern of yin and yang alternating, and there's also the 4 seasons with these 4 tamas. So then number 8 on your screen. Now, its most common, most popular sort of name, the standard name for it, basically, it's often translated as the scarf that prevents snakes, but that's not correct at all. The kanji means something that's more like a stole or a shawl. But this one particularly, the one that prevents snakes, is actually more like a skirt or an apron. So it's not really something over the shoulders. It's more like a skirt or an apron, and it's supposed to protect from evil spirits of the earth, essentially. It is, and also from actual snakes. It's considered yang, and its element is fire. And of course, then it is paired with number 9. And 9 is the shawl that prevents or protects from hornets. And that is actually the upper garment. And this is basically to protect you from evil forces from the heavens. So basically you're protected from evil forces from above and below with both of these at play. And so if number 8 is yang and fire, then 9 is, as you can guess, yin and water. And then number 10 is the shawl, or we can just say the ritual cloth item that prevents a multitude of things. And basically it's a sacred cloth that purifies anything that you put onto it. So for example, when you're bringing all of the treasures together, when you're assembling all the treasures to bring someone back from the dead body is placed on number 10. So now you have a basic introduction to the 10 treasures. Yes, there's a lot more information about these. There's more details about each one. There's more details about the 3 sets. There's more details about all 10 of them together. But for now, this is sufficient as an introductory video about where they came from. So let's go back over where they came from. They come from Nihiyahi down through his line. And they're used to resuscitate Emperor Jimmu when Emperor Jimmu is essentially at death's door. They fit into the Tada Genji tradition because not only did they get used to resuscitate Emperor Jimmu, but they are also the origins of the House of Mononobe. And Mononobe tradition is part of the religious foundation for I don't want to say Shinto, because I advocate that Shinto didn't exist until the 1600s, but what you could call the Mononobe religious tradition is a fundamental part of like the Kujiki traditions, the Taiseikyo traditions, etc., etc., etc. So these are the 10 treasures of that tradition. So you can think of the 3 imperial treasures are the 3 treasures of the imperial house, and then the 10 treasures support the imperial house, but at the same time they are the treasures of the Mononobe tradition. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Also, because they have an imperial, this divine origin and this relation to the imperial tradition, and because they are the foundational treasures of the Mononobe tradition, they thus become a significant part of Mononobe ritual tradition. And this is why you find it, for example, in the Tada Genji tradition. you find it in the Fukushima Ryu ninjutsu with the chant with the counting chant, because that chant is summoning these 10 treasures, for example. And as I put in Sacred Conspiracies in a previous video, for someone who's brand new to all this, you can understand the counting spell as just a way to calm the mind. That's one way of interpreting it, sort of a Western atheistic kind of way of interpreting it. But in the actual history, in the actual culture, it is 100% the power of the numbers, and specifically 100% an invocation of these 10 treasures. Okay, so now that you, the viewer, know that, we have discussed the actual history and belief. So now let us discuss why you hardly ever hear about the 10 treasures in the modern time. Why are they rarely discussed anymore? Why are they oftentimes considered problematic to bring up in a conversation? Now I warn you, so we're done with real history. I'm about to explain to you how occultists and conspiracy theorists have essentially turned these 10 treasures into some kind of weird trends. Okay, so the two modern trends that have essentially ruined the 10 treasures in terms of people paying attention to them so number one, the 10 treasures is always being linked to some kind of secret occult black magic. So for example, there's many manga and many anime like to use the 10 treasures as some kind of demon summoning magic. There's a very popular anime out there where one of the characters uses the 10 treasures to summon monsters or something, right? Many modern day like Japanese witches and warlocks, like you can kind of like the Japanese equivalent to sort of like New Age black magic, New Age witch type stuff, the Japanese equivalent to it. They always like to use the 10 treasures as some kind of dark Shinto magic. And so essentially you have a lot of these fringe New Age Shinto groups that have, for whatever reason, decided to use the 10 treasures as some sort of hybrid modern ritual thing. So in short, most of the modern, if you were to Google, for example, the 10 treasures, you're going to run across a lot of garbage. You're just going to come across a bunch of like pseudo fringe new agey Shinto black magic stuff, and it's just all a bunch of modern garbage, to be blunt. And I'm not trying to offend anybody's beliefs, but it's a bunch of stuff that was made up in the last 50 years. It's not at all the history, it's not at all the actual religious tradition. The second modern day trend that really like gets people to stop paying attention to the 10 treasures is the ancient alien conspiracies. So they say that Nigihayahi was an alien who crash landed on Earth. And for example, they say that like the 10 treasures are all just alien technology, right? Like treasure number 1 is a solar panel. That's why it has to be out in the sun. And then treasure 2, the mirror that you keep close to, well, that's an iPad-like device. It's actually a control panel. And then the reason that the sword has those 8 grips is because it's actually a radar dish, right? And these 3 sets are supposed to be put together because it's actually a radar station. There's a power source, there's the radar, and there's the control panel. Sounds so interesting, sounds so cool, right? We can sit here and theorize about aliens all day. The problem is that's not what the actual teachings say to do with the treasures, right? But the problem is, if it's not people talking occult, fringe, modern, New Age Shinto, it's people talking ancient aliens. And of course, I mentioned this briefly in another video, because this becomes a problem. The ancient alien theory is made worse by the fact that the Jingunden teaches that Amaterasu Okami's sacred castle is a metallic spinning fortress. So then everybody thinks, oh, that's a UFO. So then you got people saying that Amaterasu Okami is an alien and a UFO, and that Niga Hayahi was an alien and UFO, and he crashed, and these 10 treasures are alien technology. And then this continues to bite Jingunden practitioners in the ass because the Jingunden also has that teaching that I put in a previous video, that the Earth is a sphere, so that this is a sphere floating in space that has a layer of earth and water and then a layer of air. So it basically describes the planet from a view from space. So then the ancient alien theorists even more doubled down on this belief that they're like, oh, this Mononobe Ryu is teaching ancient alien stuff. And so what happens is, like I said, you get a lot of people who don't know the actual teaching, they don't know the history, they don't know what the text actually say. They just have a little bit of information that they may have gleaned from somewhere. And suddenly they've put it all together, and it's like it's either fringe New Age Shinto, or it's ancient aliens, or it's ancient aliens practicing black magic. Who knows? The problem is all of it goes farther and farther from the truth. It goes farther from the historical documents. It goes farther from what the actual records teach about what is believed. And that, unfortunately, because so many of these people because so many of the people that talk about the 10 treasures today are only talking about aliens or black magic, fringe Shinto, modern day fringe Shinto stuff, the topic is just less and less popular, and it has a rather unpleasant vibe. So when you talk about the 10 treasures, you have to be very careful, because as soon as you start talking about the 10 treasures, the assumption is you're talking about fringe, occult, modern Shinto, or you're talking about some kind of ancient alien thing. So, having said all that, hopefully, with genuine study of authentic samurai culture and tradition and samurai beliefs as recorded in the actual documents, right, the actual history, then maybe we can begin to bring discussion of the 10 treasures back into a place of honor, honored discussion, actual samurai culture, actual samurai history, and save the 10 treasures from becoming fodder for occultists and conspiracy theorists.